Yesterday, our neighbor Iran,
It was the day before yesterday.
the day before yesterday, our neighbor Iran fired like something like 300 drones towards Israel.
Yeah.
A couple of ballistic missiles,
And some cruise missiles as
some
well.
cruise missiles. Obviously, it was just all for show. It wasn't meant to be like any kind of attack that takes lives or destroys infrastructure. It
Yeah.
was like more of a flex. What do you make of the situation? There's two competing narratives that I'm seeing on Western media, at least. There's one that sort of echoes what we just said, that Iran had to retaliate for Israel's attack on its embassy.
In Damascus, yeah.
It didn't want to lose face in front of its population, in front of the world, so it had to do something. The second one that I'm getting is that Iran has like this very dangerous regime installed. They've been using proxies for many years now to attack Israel, and they hate Western liberal
They never
democracies.
really attacked Israel.
They've never attacked Israel, but they've been causing chaos in
the
like the region. And it's a bunch of crazy quote unquote Islamists,
Religious nuts, yeah.
religious nuts or fundamentalists, as they say. And also like this idea that this regime, it has to be,
It has to go.
it has to go, and the people of Iran are just sick and tired of the regime. And I think now both of these things are simultaneously somewhat true.
Yeah, elements of truth in them, yeah.
So what do you make of the situation, though?
I mean, first of all, I would like to say that, I'm very excited about the Third World War. I mean, we all want to die in a war, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's the dream, isn't it?
That's, yeah. There's no other way to gain purpose in in modern life. No, but I mean, I just think that so there's a historical precedent for the Americans on any civilization to want to simplify the problem that they're dealing with for public consumption in terms of the narrative that they build for public consumption. You saw it with Afghanistan. You saw it with Iraq. Because if you simplify your opponent or your enemy, it's much easier to hate them and to convince people that there needs to be some sort of military intervention to deal with a situation like Iran. Even though the attacks that the West usually launches against Iran are more complicated than that, but the sort of the lip service that is provided to the situation with Iran, it's more of a more simplified sort of propaganda. And again, I guess maybe all propaganda is simplified for public consumption and made easy. I think the Iran-China hysteria that you've seen I've seen since I was a kid in the American press is foreshadowing what the Americans is foreshadowing what they want in terms of their foreign policy with Iran and China, and they've had significant I wouldn't call them attacks. They've launched significant. Let's call them attacks
Right.
against Iran, whether that be the sanctions, the hacking programs when they shut down their nuclear facility. Iran claims it was a civil nuclear facility, but the Americans and Israelis say otherwise. And they've even there's some evidence to show that a lot of the dissatisfaction amongst the Iranian public. Again, that's the whole point of sanctions, is to have a dissatisfied population in terms of their ability to engage in commerce. But that was compounded with a more cultural dissatisfaction, where the Iranian diaspora in particular, and they're not a monolith, but in general, what I've observed, especially the American Iranis, they've been used as a means to communicate with their families locally back in Iran, to suggest that there's a better life out there, and the Iranian regime is too restrictive socially, and and the hijab has become a
Mandatory in Iran.
no, but the hijab has sort of become a center point in that discourse,
Right.
where it's a symbol for the form of religious suppression
Yeah.
that the Iranian people have suffered, and that's the main narrative that the Iranian diaspora and the sort of more liberal segments in Iranian society.
Yeah, and that one crown prince that's been excommunicated.
The son of Shah Pahlavi, he's in America, I think. I don't think that Iran is the Iranian regime is like some crazy religious fanatic. It's very level-headed. You can disagree with their politics in Iran, but in terms of their foreign policy, you're dealing with any other nation state. And as far as the first narrative was basically that Iran responded like any other nation state would. I mean, David Cameron let it slip a little bit. You see the statement. So basically, he said that he was appalled by the attack and Iran. It was egregious, and and then the interviewer asked him to something to the effect of, what would Great Britain do, or what would the UK do? And he's like, respond, of course. So they do have to admit sort of that it was a very normal. In fact, it was quite a muted response, in my opinion, if you compare it to even, let's say, in Israel, following up the attacks on the 7th of October, for example. Even though that's not the actual context for the the war that they're waging in Gaza and the West Bank right now, it was more of an excuse, because it seems like Israel is in a defensive position and reacting to an event, but that's not the case because they've been building up to this since its whole existence, and then the Zionist movement prior to that as well. So Iran's response was quite muted compared to an Israel or an American response or any other country. It was very level-headed. They tried to, be within the realms or the limitations of international law. They were quoting the Geneva Convention, our sovereign territory, i.e. the embassy has been attacked, so we have the right to, reply and to defend ourselves. And then with the attack, I think it was more of a display of what we can do. And it was a way to show the world as well as the Israeli management, who were probably prior to that fact fully aware of what Israel's or Iran's response might be, was to show them the sort of, like you said in the start, it was more of a flex. They used the cheapest, loudest piece of technology that they have at their disposal, which is the Shahid drone.
Yeah.
It's not even a couple of $1,000s per thing.
Yeah.
And when you engage those with an Iron Dome or a Patriot system, you're engaging them with $100,000 at least missiles.
Yeah, so
air defense systems.
I think I read a report where it said that the air defense that they did cost them $1 billion, and
US tax dollars.
Yeah, that was US tax dollars.
Yeah, no, so it was the US Navy, the UK Navy, Jordanian Air Force, as well as Israel's own defense systems that provided the cover for the attack. So the way they did it, and I saw Scott Ritter explaining it, considering he's a Marine and a weapons expert and somebody who was an a missile inspector, weapons inspectors for the UN as well. So I'm assuming that he
knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. The idea was the drones engage the missile systems, and then the cruise missiles, which were apparently B-grade cruise missiles, like rehashed older ones, they further penetrate the air defenses, and then the actual ballistic missile, which is the modern technology, that hits the target, which was the airstrip in the Negev desert. Okay. And the reason why they announced it and still loud and in a public sort of way was the idea was to remove personnel and high-value targets from said infrastructure, and other valuable targets.
Similar to what they did when they bombed that U.S. airbase after they killed
Qasem
Soleimani during Trump's era.
So I think there's always been, at that time, I don't know if the U.S. was aiming to get a rise out of Iran, but I think it's quite clear that Israel is expecting a rise out of Iran. So they're sort of calling their bluff.
Yeah. Can you actually expound upon this? That what is the reason right now that it seems like Israel is looking to draw out Iran into a war?
I think they've been thoroughly embarrassed. Again, I've seen a lot of different analysis. If you look at the Zionist types, they're trying to say that we're winning this war, and at the same time they insist that they have to keep going because they're not winning enough, which suggests that there's something amiss in their analysis. If you look at more neutral sources or even the antagonistic sources to Israel, a lot of the analysis shows that on ground, and this is something that you can deduce logically as well, they haven't hit any significant military target. Yahya Sinwar, Abu Ubaidah, Khalid Mashal, and Ismail Hania. So they've hit no significant military target. They said they would attack the Rafah crossing. They haven't. They weren't able to. They said that they would keep occupying Khan Yunis. They weren't able to. They had to evacuate. On ground, the footages, if you're on Telegram, if you're on WhatsApp, if you're on any of these social media apps, billions of people perhaps across the world have seen the videos of Hamas fighters up close and personal with GoPros. They're able to take out, tanks, Merkava tanks, the APCs, units, individual level. So the frequency of those videos has reduced. This is not something that I think is something maybe people have noticed, but the level of destruction being caused in those videos is the same. And wherever the cells or units of Hamas are still operating, they're still able to hit with success troop movements, any sort of artillery, battery units that Israel is sending into Gaza. And I think another thing that's been achieved from the Hamas attack is that I think, number one, the Palestinian state and the general idea of Palestinian statehood has never been, at least in my conscious memory, never been such a hotly, publicly contested thing.
Right.
It's never been more of a reality than it is now. Maybe not in terms of a material actualization, but in terms of it being talked about at the highest and the lowest of levels. From casual cafe conversations all the way to the UN, to state departments, to parliaments, to embassies, senates, the whole 9 yards. And the other thing,
right, and the pendulum has swung from one extreme to the other, where you saw all these Arab countries, maybe even certain
slowly recognizing
other Muslim countries,
maybe Pakistan even,
moving towards recognizing Israel and normalizing
trade relations and diplomatic relations with Israel. You know what it is? I think the Hasbara Israeli sort of Zionist propaganda machine in Hollywood, in the mainstream media, in literature, this romanticization of the Holocaust as opposed to any other genocide, of World War II as opposed to any other major global conflict. And this particular, I've even seen that they were paying comedians and film stars to go to Israel and then to tweet about it and to Instagram about it. Maybe the level of propaganda was insane. If you look at APEC, for example, so from the level of politics, we have an APEC pressurizing and lobbying young politicians who want to build their careers in America, in the American Senate or any other form of public office, all the way down to film and TV. The Holocaust is done to death, honestly, and I'm not being insensitive. It's genuinely done to death. It's unwatchable at this point. With the black slavery stuff, I feel like nobody's watching at this point. The sort of the constant guilting of the whites and the Europeans with, on how they've behaved with the Jewish communities in the Western world. I think a lot of that has swung back, and then it has led to two responses. They've lost their main sort of the Frankenstein or the monster or the golem that they created. What's the thing from Jewish literature? Golems? No, the other one.
I have no idea.
The rock man that they make, and
the rock man.
Yeah, the man of stone. That's a protective sort of.
Must be a golem there.
I think it's a golem. That's gone out of control, which is the liberal left.
Right.
Even the cultural sort of libs, they've lost them because in the calculus of Israel versus Palestine, who's brown?
The Palestinians.
Who's weak?
The Palestinians.
Materially. So even in that calculus, you can't. So the giant monster that the liberal left and then sort of the minority communities, along with the Jews, created in Western Europe, was cultural acceptability and immigration and white is bad and all of that. It's come down to bite them in the ass. By no stretch of the imagination could the liberal left ever go back on their stance on apartheid, on any sort of racialized society such as Israel. It's a conservative shift, which is, I think, a natural shift that was happening in the past 30, 40 years, which they were sick of the wars, they were sick of Iraq, Afghanistan. They were, they were sick of sort of the cultural hijacking of the American or the Western European or even general European cultural zeitgeist. So even this has allowed them to let sort of an anti-Semitism or even a white nationalism to seep into their politics, and I think that's good because you can't suppress the sort of natural instincts that a people might have with regards to their own race, their own people, their own culture, and it's just like the pendulum is. I think a yo-yo is more as a better example.
Okay.
With as much force that you throw it, it's gonna come back right where it was.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying those people are racist or bad or negative in any way. It's fine to love your own people, and I genuinely see no problems with white nationalism or Christian nationalism or whatever they want to do. It's their prerogative.
So you don't like believe in this idea of reparations and just the fact that the sort of leftist liberal idea that power structures are what define the world, and whoever is on top of that hierarchy will exploit like the weaker classes.
I think there's an element of truth in their critique of corrupt power structures,
Right.
and the way they exploit minorities or weak people. But I also think that competency, like just general competence, is a real thing.
But do you think that there should be like a racial bias for this? Because
I don't think there is. I think it's a lie. I think there's an implicit racial bias that an individual might have. I don't think there's a collective racial bias. If anything, Israel is an example of a collective racial bias as opposed to in America. Like you and me can go to America right now.
Yeah.
We get a visa, get a job there. If we worked hard enough, we could make a decent life. And I'm not saying, I think what the collective, so if you go to the far left and the far right, you sort of see that the thing, like, the political spectrum is not a straight line, it's more of like a loop.
Okay.
And it loops back and they sort of converge on certain things. I think the working class, average Joe types in the West have figured out that, that social and financial class is the real, money is the real problem, as opposed to race or gender or whatever nonsense.
Right.
I also feel like it's like a smokescreen, the race and gender stuff. And then and then the extreme, we have 100 genders now. But what's the point? What's the point of dividing people, even further into subcategories? And other than, we can talk all day about the sort of the retardation that is required, the mental sort of decay that is required to get into that kind of thinking. But just as a bird's eye sort of view on this is that it's clearly a ploy.
It is. It's also like maybe if you are looking at the world through these power structures, it's like the lowest hanging fruit, where it's like, okay, well, I can't financially liberate myself from like all these complex financial systems that are in place.
Yeah, I wonder who put them there.
Yeah, let's not get into it. There's no meaningful sort of hierarchy or power structure that you can dismantle, but at the very least, like this lowest hanging fruit that is sort of relegated to your own self.
Something is so dumb and obvious that even a retard can see. It's color
And
gender,
Yeah. But like, again, like the thing is that, okay, yeah, sure, gender might be,
Yeah, maybe.
it has like social aspects to it, right? But what's the point of like breaking those chains? Like, shouldn't you start from like
It's
the
because
very
it's
top?
because they're perverts. It's because they're perverts and they hate everything about. I think a lot of the political social activism
Yeah.
has been informed by. And we always forget that it is in the zeitgeist, it is in the public consciousness.
Right.
These people are sex fiends. That's what they are. They're sexual deviants who hate things that are natural, normal. Like they hate the family unit. They hate like husbands and wives. They hate like regular, just like,
Yeah, they dislike.
checkered picnic cloth, white family, one like a dog and two kids, and it's like normal.
Right.
Like heteronormative. They have a name for it.
Yeah, heteronormative. They also dislike children often, I found.
A lot of them have bought into this antinatalist sort of.
They prefer like,
The earth is dying, and so we have to kill ourselves.
and they prefer dogs and pets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas like, dogs
Smell bad, and they live with them in little flats.
Yeah, but also like
And they
humans
shit.
have really, genetically altered dogs to suit, their tastes and preferences.
No, but a lot of people would be asking at this point in the audience, like, what does this have to do with Iran? It has everything to do with Iran, because now, if you ask that, at least certain segments of that left, what they think about Iran, and they'll say that it's an oppressed, third world country that, it's just so I'm not saying they're wrong or right. What I'm saying is that the American system or society has caught itself in its own trap. Something they used to browbeat us about, by the way, forever, like women's rights and gender equality, and I don't know what the hell else. Everything's come to bite them in the butt.
The problem is, like, these contradictions have existed forever. Like, for example, with the support of Saudi Arabia, for example.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, they have issues with the... It's like, let's be honest, it's a dictatorial regime, right?
Yeah, it's not even yeah.
And the standards that, like, the Westerners have for, like, women's rights and whatever arbitrary rules that, they decide.
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia doesn't fit those at all.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's been like a move by Saudi Arabia now to appease maybe like these Western investors to, soften its image or whatever. But for the longest time, that wasn't the case, and America has been an ally of Saudi Arabia.
I think the reason why Saudi Arabia is modernizing in this sort of brutal sort of way is because we're in the information age, and in the information age, like, the sort of public perception that is, in an information economy, that is what defines the economy.
Right.
Like, look at Dubai, look at the UAE, look at Abu Dhabi or Dubai. They're a nightmare. They're a nightmare hellscape that the dumb white people and Indians go to have holidays.
But bro, you can leave $1 million on the street,
and
nobody would steal it.
Yeah, because they'd kill their slaves if they stole it. Right. The people who work there are essentially slaves. Coming back to this Iran thing, that there's this big axis of resistance, like leftist sort of grift. Have you seen like the guys on Twitter, like?
The axis of resistance. That includes Iran.
Jackson Hinkle. Have you seen the guy?
Yeah, I know about Jackson.
The guy's a fraud. I'm telling you, the guy's a big fraud, so? Dude. He just shills for Iran and Russia. That's all he does.
You think he's like got vested interests?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't care. It's his problem. But I do know someone who does have vested interests. Yeah. This Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, I wonder why he's been so supportive of.
Yeah.
Have you seen?
They fired Candace Owens.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did fire him.
The dumbest conservative on planet Earth.
Yeah, but
why? By the way, why is a lot of the public sort of the public? I don't even say intellectuals. The people who occupy the sound waves in the airwaves. Why do they have such base retarded opinions?
I don't know what it is.
Like Candace Owens is so dumb. I don't know why people like her.
I think with the Americans, it's just like everything's so exaggerated.
Is there a lot of tokenism? She's a black, confident woman. So for her to repeat like generic conservative talking points is like impressive.
Maybe. I think the Americans have really just broken it down to a science where they just like, they've broken it down to like the very basic fundamentals that you say this and, like the people will clap.
Yeah.
They'll jump in their seats. I think they just know how to speak to the masses. Like they have like this big propaganda media machine. And I think that looks very stupid to us. But it works for them, man.
It works for them. But no, I definitely... I just think that it's insane that in the past 10 years, a whole new sort of ethos has erupted where there's like these individuals and they're all connected to each other. There's like a Jordan Peterson and a Candace Owens and a Ben Shapiro and a Jackson Hinkle. And this whole ecosystem is nuts.
It is insane.
And they're like, they're fueled by war and political like conflict and strife. Yeah. It's the whole economy.
It is in the information economy, as you said.
Yeah.
And
somehow comedians have overlapped into this. Have you seen?
Yes.
Like the Joe Rogans and...
I think the thing with comedians always has been that to be like a good comedian, you have to have like an astute sort of ability to observe things as they happen. And even if you look back at, people like George Carlin...
so edgy.
Yeah, they had like...
I mean, there's like always comedians that delve into politics and
court jesters, maybe.
Court jesters or whatever.
Times.
But there's something particularly funny about Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan is a unique person,
In that he works with the CIA.
especially because he works for the CIA. He must be the first comedian that the CIA has on it.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
You think they've
You saw
been-
that weird comedy club in New York, which is owned by Israeli intelligence.
No.
Yeah, it was insane. I don't know what it was called. It was straight up owned and operated by Israeli intelligence.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I don't buy the narrative. I think throughout sort of mainstream entertainment in America has been bought and paid for by intelligence. Now, whether or not it was American intelligence, is something that you can argue about. But it was. I don't think any major Hollywood production that we've seen in the past whatever how many years.
Yeah.
I don't think there was always like a message. There was always a product being sold or a service or social engineering or whatever.
True. Especially a lot of these big production studios, they always have.
And I don't know why that is. Why that shouldn't apply to like comedy. Like, have you seen all the Israeli like Jewish type comedians? All the Jew comedians are like they love Israel and they want to go to Israel and they're all like tweeting about Israel and defending Israel and they're having meltdowns, like live meltdowns.
True. But then again, like recently you see a lot of these comedians, at least a lot of the bigger ones are the ones that have like very anti-establishment, anti-status quo stances. Don't you think so?
I mean, big ones who?
Like maybe anti-status quo is like the wrong way of putting it. Let's just say they have very right-leaning opinions, like Dave Chappelle, for example.
Is Dave Chappelle right? I don't think so.
Well, Dave Chappelle has taken up like this war against like the transgender movement for
I don't know
whatever
if it's a
reason.
war. Some kind of controlled opposition, I think.
It is something.
It's something, let's say.
Then you have like all these comedians talking about this woke culture.
Listen. All the intellectual dark web nonsense with the criticisms of the left. I think it's all controlled opposition. It's all fake.
Who was like
Who
would you say was like a champion of the left comedian? The left just isn't funny, unfortunately.
Jon Stewart was big when he was actually funny.
Jon Stewart,
Yeah, before it became a bajillionaire and sold out.
maybe. What about people like Amy Schumer?
And they're never funny.
No, they weren't funny, but they also have been.
I think the left-right paradigm, as we were talking about it,
Yeah,
you keep realizing it's done. It's finished.
it is kind of finished.
They have opinions all over the place.
Like normal people.
Like Ben Shapiro's, like normal people. Like Ben Shapiro's anti-war, except when he has to kill a bunch of brown kids. You know what I mean?
Ben Shapiro has been extremely Islamophobic, let's say, for a long time.
I hate that word. He hates Islam.
He does. He hates Islam.
And we hate him.
Like have you seen like that PragerU video he did?
No, I don't see it.
You know about PragerU, right?
Yeah.
Which is like this channel owned by what's the guy's name? Something Prager, Dennis Prager.
Dennis Prager, I think.
He's like an old white man who, by the way, has like the funniest video.
He's not white.
Yeah, okay.
He's a Jew.
Yeah. He has like this really funny video with Jordan Peterson.
Of course he does.
Where Jordan Peterson is sitting and
Is Jordan Peterson crying?
bro, it's like Jordan Peterson sitting at the head of the desk, right?
Yeah.
There's like 3 people to his left, 3 to his right, and all of them are discussing like the Bible, basically. And like he has pastors and people, theologians and whatever, and PragerU.
Yeah, Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, he has Prager for some reason. And then like he starts talking about some passage from the Bible, and he talks about how like if you are born poor, you are born like in this better position to receive, or something like that. Whatever like philosophical nonsense that these guys get up to. And Dennis Prager just looks at him and he's like, when you put it like that, it really makes sense to me. That's brilliant. Because I always thought that, why are poor people good? But when you put it like that, that really makes sense. And like literally, essentially, he was just like, I was always like, ew, poor people.
Yeah.
But you could like just his face contorts into like disgust as he even says the word poor people.
No, he's a disgusting human being.
He's a gross guy.
I think all these people are gross.
And Ben Shapiro did a video for his channel, and it was just
I think Ben Shapiro is a part of PragerU.
Huh?
Yeah.
He's a part of Prager.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, he did, maybe, but like he posted a video on the channel where he was the narrator, and I think even Jordan Peterson's done a video.
Of course he has. Jordan Peterson's bought and paid for.
So, it was just like blatant, straight up racism, to like a disgusting extent.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't throw stones when living in a glass house. You know what I mean?
True. But let's get back to like the axis of resistance thing. So why do you not buy into this idea? What do you think is fundamentally flawed with like this conception?
I don't think Iran's like genuinely an enemy of the West or the Americans or anything. I think it's just political propaganda. I think it's just that they're strategically placed in a way where the Americans are their opponents, as opposed to I don't think nation states have like divine moral causes that they're sort of taking up against the Americans or anyone.
Right. Everybody's
just
they operate. There's something about a nation state where once that many people get together, it stops being it loses like some sort of humanity and it becomes very utilitarian in nature.
There's something,
right?
I think it's implicit in any sort of public, collective, social organization.
That tends towards like utility instead of
it tends towards the best possible material outcome as opposed to any moral. So the axis of resistance stuff, for example, is basically the Eastern Bloc, which was dead for a while because of the unipolarity that America had achieved. It was totally in charge of global trade and military developments, and it had bases all over the world, which most of them it has retained to this day. It's just that times have changed. I just think that the elites in the world have they've moved on from America maybe, and they want to develop some new. If you look at this WF type stuff, if you look at that that Jew, what's his name, Klaus Schwab, and the WF and those things, they've infiltrated cabinets and corporations and all kinds of mega structures. And the idea is this, this weird, like the ESG score type, like you can pay to play and, show that you're whatever aware about global warming and the planet dying and, whatever. And you're very culturally sensitive and you have a whole HR team full of, alphabet people and you've hired every race under the sun. So they've made the game in a way where it's not going to be, the survival of the fittest or the other way around. The maxim would work where the strongest, the victor gets the spoils kind of situation. So the Americans or the America would deserve the spoils, right, of the world in a classic sort of paradigm because they pretty much out technologied, out economied, the whole world. So they're changing the paradigm in a way, and they've built up China to a point now. Like I genuinely don't understand the kind of trade deals that the Americans have made historically with the Chinese,
right,
where they're getting technology transfers, skilled labor now. They're getting training. They're basically getting the tools to make their own fire, right? To make their own energy sources and technology, and like it seems rigged. It just seems like the game is rigged against. I don't think there's like the idea of the nation state that was sold to us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's real. I don't think America represents the collective will of the Americans. Like the dollar, it stings us the whole while. Since it's been the global currency, but it also messes with the American worker. It messes up their lives, their buying power. They might get Chinese made whatever cheap clothes once in a while, but I don't think the Americans are doing so well. I'm talking about like regular people.
Right.
And that's where that left-right meeting comes from. If you see, I think Trump does that for a lot of whites and blacks and Mexicans and all the Americans. Is that he's not really a right-winger and he's not really like a leftist or a liberal or whatever. Culturally, I do think the Americans are far gone to a point where they can't come back from this sort of, in terms of the cultural consumption that they do. There's no putting back that genie back in the bottle. The sexual sort of gender exploration, that whole explosion,
yeah,
is never going back. But the right is also accepted. You have gay right-wing conservatives and pastors and preachers, and
Right.
so religion as an institution is hijacked. Day-to-day average social consumption, that's all hijacked. Talking to people on the street, and I mean, sure, you could go to a conservative town or a county or whatever and have more, I don't know, Christian neighbors or a more religious type of neighbors, but I don't think you would end up with a collective society where you can escape this. It's in the education system. It's in their universities. It's in their HR departments. It's in their church. That's why I think a lot of the new atheist type of kids, the edgy Reddit kids, 4chan kids, they're friends with the right wing Christian nuts. They're friends with the white nationalist types. They're all sort of converging into one one big slop right at the center, let's say, or so far enough at the right and the left that it is the new center.
Right.
That's the average public. What I think. That's the average person. Like their army enlistment is bad, because I saw recently in an ad, in an army recruitment ad, the Americans have stopped running ads for I'm an LGBTQ. Have you seen the LGBTQ Mexican woman ad? I work for the CIA.
Yes.
It's nuts, dude. You work for the CIA, you literally kill people and torture them for you can take their blood and you can do like facials or whatever.
I think the reason companies.
No, but in the recent ad, there was white guys.
I understand. I think the reason that companies or any large organization chooses to run these ads is because what they're trying to do essentially is offend the least amount of people so they can maximize the clientage.
No, but they're offending the most amount of people. Like, look at Bud Light.
I think they didn't really realize this.
No, I think it's more no. I think it's more nefarious than that, because you have these ESG score type things,
Right.
and credit ratings that you get from these big, let's say, transnational bodies that rate companies and corporations, and apparently it helps you with stock options and those kind of things.
Okay.
You can rate your stock higher, and then executives can take out bigger bonuses. There's a whole science to it, which I'm not. It's not that I couldn't understand. It's that I don't care.
Okay.
There's a whole. That's why I said the WF and these kinds of transnational organizations have set up the corporate ethos in a way where they're incentivized to offend the sensibility. Like, look at, so if you go back even 5 years,
Yeah.
at no point has the public received any of these ads or films. And go woke, go broke is a real thing.
But
no?
what would be the motivation behind doing something like this?
Financial incentive.
Yeah. So
So, for example, why would IKEA plant a forest in Sweden? Because they get points on some environmental score, and then they can get carbon credits or whatever.
What I mean to ask is, what would be the motivation behind setting up this
kind of system?
Yeah.
I think it was a big social experiment.
Okay.
I have a few ideas on what race of people is sort of is pulling the strings. I think it's this global elite, because they're sick. They just want a sick society. It's easier to run. People like male vitality, right?
Yeah.
That's the sort of the.
So now, when you're making this argument,
they're non-threat, like blob people.
They want non-threatening blob people.
Like genderless, homogeneous blob people who consume soy and sugar and.
When you say this,
big homo blob people.
It conjures to mind an image of some people who are just unimaginably evil, nefarious people who just want bad things to go on.
Yeah, most people.
I don't know.
You mean most people?
But what if we look at it from the lens of that most people are rational actors to the degree that they will try to make decisions that suit them the best or benefit them the most, right? So even if you look at, let's say, the elite of the world, essentially what they're trying to do is solidify their power and solidify their money.
Yeah.
So in that paradigm, how does it really help them if they're doing this pushing, let's say, an agenda for maybe LGBT or
Dude, you know that transgenders, the people who chop off their genitals and their breasts or whatever, they're stuck on pharmaceuticals for the rest of their life.
Okay.
Always.
Alright.
for hormones and whatever.
Okay.
That's a really good customer. Someone whose life depends on. It's why they don't cure cancer.
Okay.
It's the same reason. I think it's more than just a financial equation. I think it's a big social project. I think these people, a lot of them have weird transhumanist ideas about how we need to transcend the flesh. The flesh is so disgusting. Oh, and then they have anti-natalist ideas. All of them definitely.
Right.
Like openly they talk about it. Like Bill Gates, I remember gave a TED talk about it, about how he wants to improve vaccines
Right.
so that people's average health improves, and because when that happens, apparently it has a negative correlation with reproductive rates. You know, they don't like human beings. They like automation. They like.
But I think like with Bill Gates,
I just think
the argument like that he might have been making was that overpopulation is a problem in third world countries because
yeah,
it's a burden.
Why would you? Okay, so if you had a few $1 million, not even like billions of dollars, an average sort of human being would stop participating in society. That's the goal, right? To get to a point where you don't have to
listen to anybody,
deal with anybody. Why the hell do these people care so much? I don't trust them. I don't trust anyone who cares so much, even in a non-performative way. If somebody is so authentically, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's say they're presenting in a way where they're so authentically concerned about human welfare and I love all human beings, and it's a lie. That person is a grifter. They want to sell you something.
I think for sure,
or they want to take something from you.
Make the argument that these people, who have like these billionaires, the way they make their billions, if you look at the history, they haven't proven themselves to be very moral
or competent even
actors.
I don't even. I think on an individual like an individual very low scale, competence is important to create and maintain wealth.
Yeah.
But with these higher up types, I don't even think they're competent. I just think that they're connected to the right people. They're from the Orsini family, or like they're.
But there's so many people who are well connected. Don't you think there's some degree of competence, even if it's like a Machiavellian kind of competence?
Obviously, I think the way corporate structures are in the modern world is it's not that you have to have a high IQ. It's you have to have enough of a mind for like just like gay politics of a corporation. Okay. Very feminine sort of the politics is, and you have to climb those ladders. If you look at all the CEOs, like these weird women CEOs in like Disney or whatever, they just sort of climb that social ladder very easily because they can gossip and they can get you fired.
But there aren't that many women running big companies.
Now there are. A lot of them are. And the Indian CEOs, the tech CEOs, they're all like skeevy, scummy, sort of, unmanly, pot-bellied, skinny fat weirdos.
That is true. It's but don't you think these people are more so just like representative? That's the most non-threatening possible person that you can put as the face of a company.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why I said male vitality. The thing is, a lot of the if you look at look at where all the culture is going, right? In the backdrop of what Iran and Israel are doing, you have people who are getting like passport bros who go to like Southeast Asia to marry like little women, tiny women who will obey them and will make them feel like a man or whatever. Because the women in the West are like sloppy, used and abused, weird. They have psychotic ideas about feminism or whatever,
right.
and there's nothing about them that's womanly. And then the extreme of that would be to react, and I want a trad wife in a sundress who's gonna build Europa with me, and she's also a Nazi, and that's also a crazy person.
Right.
The normalcy, I think this constant state of being on edge is all about stealing people's normalcy, just regular human shit. That's what they want to take away.
But how does that serve their greater purpose?
Because it's just about, I think it's about breaking people's backs to the point where they can do the menial work.
Yeah.
Because obviously this automation stuff is bullshit. None of it's going to happen the way they're like the AI and Chat GPT and All of it's nonsense. Like it's humans doing those jobs at the end of the day.
Right.
So they need the average person to just be functional enough that they can push some buttons on a screen or whatever, and then buy the soy slop at McDonald's or whatever wherever they're eating.
Yeah.
But then they don't have enough male vitality to fight back and ask questions and want a bigger piece of the pie, and that's what it's about. I think everyone. So even the entrepreneurs, skeevy, scammy type characters, even they have some sense of what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
Like you got to make money quick and you got to make your own and you have to have multiple income sources or whatever.
Right.
I think everyone has a little nugget of what's really going on, the truth. But the full picture, I think, because of the weird irreligious nature of American or Western society,
Yeah.
they have no spirit, they have no heart. Which is why they have like weird yoga and Eastern meditation and all this nonsense. I think even a good Christian ethic would have not led to this kind of social decay.
So, but
I also think that a lot of the hatred they have for Iran in the Muslim world, it's almost a subconscious kind of a jealousy. Because I mean, maybe from the outside we don't look at, but very normal society. Muslim societies in general are very normal.
yeah, true.
So there's some extreme cases like in Iran or like in Afghanistan, which has been through war, or in Iran, which is in a certain kind of economy. But even I'm sure 100% on average, the average Afghani society is just regular people.
Yeah, compared to the West, for sure, though.
I mean, like, there
hasn't been as much.
I can't even imagine the kind of paranoia that like white men have. Just a regular white man. I'm not saying a rich white man. Just a regular white man, middle class suburban guy. Like he can get Me Too'd. He can get he doesn't trust the woman or girlfriend that he's with. He doesn't he can get racially harassed for being white or whatever. I don't even know what the hell any of these things are like. It's just I think their heads are on, and the guy's addicted to porn.
Right.
And he has a weed addiction because it's out there in the culture. Everyone, like I just look at a lot of these entertainers and public figures, and they're always talking about all the kind of medication that they're using, and
Yes.
it's so weird. We're not pharmacologically just inundated. We're not propagandized. The news doesn't even work here.
Right.
Like the governments and the public structures are not efficient enough to propagandize us properly. You know what I mean?
That's a funny way of putting it.
Yeah, like our ineptitude with like municipal structures and government and social organization is one of the sources why it's like the wild west.
Right.
Like that's when Miles came here.
Yeah. Shout out to Lord Miles.
Lord Miles Rutledge, the adventure tour. The guy's story is nuts, dude.
It is.
Yeah, and he's always on edge and paranoid about everything.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not from here, it's from
His life in the UK.
I think Europe's particularly bad. I think America still has some semblance of freedom.
No, America's much better off, I
Yeah.
think, than Europe
Yeah.
in many ways.
Like look at Canada when they did the thing with the trucker. When the truckers were protesting during the COVID,
Yes.
and they shut down their wall. Canada hasn't had a major protest since then
Really?
because it worked. They got jail times. They got their wallets snatched and their e-wallets hacked or shut down or whatever, and bank accounts frozen.
Yeah, they just squashed the protest.
They squashed any sort of public dissent. I genuinely think that the West is going very fast towards some sort of central Chinese style control, and they're going to fight. By the way, if the Israelis' response is not muted, if it escalates and they have to go in some sort of engagement with Iran.
That's what they've said. Israel anyway has that they are going to respond. So let's see what they do.
What did Biden say about that?
Biden urged them not to do anything reckless and be forgiving and just let it go.
Yeah, and then he forgot where he was and he pooped his pants.
But I think
Who's Biden's handlers? What are they like?
the people who sort of manage him,
The people who sort of, fill him up with batteries and,
who dress him up in the morning,
and clean his shit and then give him some ice cream and
send him on his way.
talk about corn pop and, I don't know.
I don't know. It's always been the CIA, hasn't it?
Yeah.
After they killed JFK and
Maybe even before.
after they killed Abraham Lincoln.
There was no CIA back then.
Yeah, but there was something weird about Abraham Lincoln's death that I remember reading. Oh, he had a dream about it before
being
he died.
shot?
Yeah. He had a dream about... No, he had a dream where he said he was walking in his house and he could hear everybody crying, like his wife and kids.
Yeah, they probably figured out he was gay.
And he... What?
You know that Abraham Lincoln was gay, right?
No way.
Yeah. He had like a weird boyfriend that they used to hang out with, and it's a big story.
Maybe he was just a good friend of his.
No, it was weird. They slept in the same bed and weird kind of stuff.
Maybe they were just...
The far conservative types hate Abraham Lincoln, by the way.
because he freed the slaves?
No, it's
Oh.
just I just think that maybe that it's one of those elements of history which has been so propagandized that maybe it wasn't as described. Like if you look into it,
Yeah.
a lot of the Civil War stuff wasn't as they described it. I'm not. I don't really care
About American Civil War.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on it, but I've heard and I've seen a lot of people who seem to really care about it say that Abraham Lincoln was a bad guy.
But the important thing to remember here is that he had a dream that he was going to be killed.
He walked around his house while people were crying.
Oh yeah, and then he saw a man in a casket, and he asked somebody who's that, and the person was like, "That's the president." But he claims that it wasn't him in the casket, which is somebody
It was
else.
JFK.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And then the weirder thing is that what was the name of his friend? What was the guy who was with him a lot?
The gay guy.
No, not the gay guy. Who was his main sort of advisor, his trusted aide, his right hand
boyfriend?
guy?
I don't remember his name. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, we have to remember. It starts with an H.
It's not
Hughes, Huxley. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
funny. Hassan Habi.
So, and the weirder thing is that his aide, whose name just escapes me right now, he was supposed to be with him in the theater, and his name was on the list for being assassinated. Also, he was supposed
He
to
didn't
die.
show up.
He didn't show up because his wife started having a panic attack, and she was like, "That I'm getting a really bad feeling. I want to go home."
Oh.
So they took him home.
He did like a reverse Batman.
Yeah, and actually both of these things are part of public record, and you can actually read about them. Abraham Lincoln wrote about this, the dream he had, and the other thing is also on record.
Do you think Trump's gonna come into power?
I think all signs point towards that.
I think they might have some kind of civil strife. I don't think whoever
When is the election?
October, November.
It's gonna be crazy.
Half the world had their elections this year.
Yeah. I think Israel's also coming up.
I doubt they'll happen.
Let's see. And yeah, it's weird. When Trump was on his way out during the 2020 elections, or leading up to that, it seemed like the stage was just set for Biden to come in, and everything happened very last moment with COVID and the vaccine issue and everything, and that was definitely a deciding factor in the elections.
Yeah, the code definitely was.
Not to mention them lobbying for the mail-in votes and everything.
Mm.
And then this time, it seems once again everything just sort of happens last moment, and the pendulum has swung in the other direction, where it's the anti-war sentiment has risen so much.
Yeah, it almost seems like this whole thing is planned out.
It does. It seems like all the world's a play.
Oh, who's that? Milton?
I don't know.
No, but like it's quite clear that whatever powers were opposed to Trump
Yeah.
are now
In his camp?
in his camp. Maybe like he's kept it well with the Zionist lobby.
He is. He actually was the one who, made Jerusalem or opened the US Embassy in Jerusalem
Yeah, recognizing it as the capital.
as the capital of Israel. So that's true. He is in bed with them. He didn't start any wars though.
No, but he did hit that Irani target, the Qasem Soleimani, the general.
He did. But the lesser of two evils.
I don't know. Do you think Israel's gonna because clearly Israel's desperate and it wants a bigger regional conflict with Iran.
The idea being that it wants to get the US involved somehow, so it can
And the
save
Saudis
face.
and Egyptians and force them to take sides, and
You think the Saudis and Egyptians will mobilize?
they would have to, because I mean Jordan, the excuse that Jordan is using to intercept those drones is that it's
We're a
violating our
sovereign
airspace
country, yeah.
and we're a sovereign country. First of all, the first claim is that we're a real country, which it's not. Jordan's a made up place, but
So you think that they will get involved just to save face? Do you think there is a chance that there will be enough public pressure on the Saudis, on the
to
Jordanians?
side with Palestine.
Yes.
If there was some kind of all-out war,
Yeah.
I think Jordan could skip it, but maybe not the Saudis and the Egyptians. Jordan's already having problems with their public, with their
Right.
populace, and is really clamping down on trying to control them.
Do you think the public sentiment in Saudi would allow for it to support,
Israel?
Israel in a
No,
war?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think Saudi's gonna have a tough time. I think that's why the fear and wonder stuff is going on. Really, like we'll build a line, we'll build a new city, we'll build all these things.
Yeah.
Here's a cinema, here's a mall. It's Rihanna, it's Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Watch the concert.
Right. Women can drive now. Ooh.
Yeah. I think they're trying to, ease the blow of what they're planning with Israel,
Right.
which is a total regional cooperation. And if you saw the map that Netanyahu showed in the UN, it was like an alternative to the CPEC and the Belt and Road initiatives
Right.
that the Chinese have, where they want to take up the classical Silk Route
Right.
and then sort of connect Eastern, Central Europe, South Asia, Central Asia, and Africa, sea and land routes. Setting up trains and energy networks. There's an alternative proposed plan that sort of India and Israel have been, and the Saudis have sort of been wrapped up with by the Americans. It's quite clear that the Americans are doing like a strategic sort of retreat from most of their occupation in the world.
Right.
But if you go through the list from Eastern Europe all the way down to South Asia and the Middle East, they sort of set up little time bombs and traps for China and Russia.
Right.
Which I think of all of these sort of the axis of whatever, China is the real big,
Threat.
Yeah, I don't want to say threat, is the real big target.
Okay.
They banned TikTok, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
Or they are just about to, inevitably.
Yeah, but they've said that if you don't sell by whatever the sell by date is, you will be banned from the United States, and that's the idea, is to secure the data
Right.
so that they can spy on their own people properly.
Yeah. Why leave it to the Chinese?
Yeah.
And also like the opinion making that they have to do through these platforms. I don't know. It looks like we're heading towards a brave new world.
I don't know about that, but I do think that it's inevitable, because any sort of transitionary period where you have, let's say, America retreating from its number one position, unipolarity turning into multipolarity or whatever, there's going to be violence. Because there's old systems and trade routes and businesses and militaries that completely depend on that sort of classical network.
Right.
And the predictive power and speed with which these things can change, it varies across time and geography. So,
But I think, when we talk about America sort of retreating, I think we should consider who like the big stakeholders are in America. You often say this, that the old oil barons have been replaced by like
The tech weirdos.
the tech boys.
Yeah.
And as far as the tech people go, they don't really need that kind of physical occupation anymore, right? They don't have to man oil rigs. They don't need,
Trade networks to supply the oil. I think the COVID exercise was pretty effective in displaying the export of IP
yeah,
and America continuing to leverage their balance of trade in exchange for all the world's wealth, because it's one of the few empires or countries that has been import heavy and still been able to turn a profit, through different complex financial mechanisms, as well as their massive export of military hardware, training, and IP, just from entertainment to like iPhones and
right. That
what have
leaves
you.
like the weapon contractors, and those guys have their hands full right now
Yeah, there was a decent amount of wars going on.
going on. I do think that if like you look at like these top stakeholders, I don't see America's power waning in that sense.
No, America. See, again, America as an entity, the American people, the elites, is all separate. America is a tool
America is a tool for making money.
that the elites use as per their,
But it seems more so to me like, they've just, when like your investments sort of mature, you cash out,
Yeah.
and then you move on towards the next thing.
They're definitely they're cashing out of America. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're cashing out from physical occupation.
They're cashing out through America. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
maybe. But I think the Middle East is one of those last holdouts where they have Israel to do their bidding in the
Yeah.
region. They have the Saudis and the Emiratis, and they have a significant. I think the Middle East is where they have the most significant foothold, because even Western Europe, as abysmal as their economic and social condition is, as well as military, they still have some semblance of a foreign policy compared to an America, or a NATO, so the EU has its strengths, and France clearly stretches its muscles, stretches its and flexes its muscles once in a while. But in the Middle East, they really have a deep chokehold. Do they want to let go of that, connecting, Asia, Africa, and Europe? Do they really want to?
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
But I think they are in a good position to, get Saudi Arabia on board.
Which they have.
Which they pretty much
And they've
have.
also thrown Europe to the dogs,
They have, yes.
forcing them to take all the immigration from the wars that they've waged in the Middle East and Africa.
Right.
And they've also, forced them to make certain economic decisions which are detrimental. And then also the Russia thing, right at Europe's doorstep.
I think they're hedging their bets on the fact that, that sort of civilizational war has been won. And I don't think America feels like it needs to invent an Israel, as Joe Biden said, anymore.
Yeah, maybe not.
Because I think they have enough influence within like the Arab countries at this point that they can maintain a pretty good chokehold on the Middle East.
Yeah, if they engulf the whole region with violence, like in war, there's no need to. I mean, because the oil fields are secure in Iraq and Syria,
Yeah,
I mean, it was like 60% of the oil in Syria is controlled by the Americans.
the Americans.
Yeah.
That's insane. So let's end on this. What do you see happening in the next
I don't know. It's insane.
10 hours?
I think it's insane. But I don't think America wants Israel to do what it's doing. I think it was. I think it was a case of them not being able to control the sort of the monster that Israel has become, and they wanted a limited, sort of very clean operation. And then Israel is also very bloated and inefficient with their military bureaucracy, and they weren't able to execute on that. It was loud and ugly and not smooth in the least bit, and then it's become a big eyesore for everyone.
Right.
And I don't think they want to be overcommittal with their relationship because Israel wants. This is the big payout for Israel. For all the billions of dollars over all the years, this is the big payout. They want one last, big favor from America, which is to clean up its mess in the Middle East. And I don't think the Americans would want to commit to that unless, I don't know, some big. That's why I suspect that this election in the American election in November is not going to be a normal one.
Well, there are like those pending charges on Trump.
On Trump, yeah, technically,
So you never know. They might just jail him when time comes.
Either January 6th, what was it? January 5th, 6th?
Yeah, January 6th.
Yeah.
It might be another one of those.
The guy the Jake and Jelly, the guy with the horns?
Yeah.
He's out and he's running for Congress.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Suit and tie and all, very sophisticated, very level-headed,
That's pretty good. If only, we can have somebody in our country.
To wear horns and...
Yeah, one of... that kid who stole the peacock during like the 9th May protests in Pakistan?
Yeah.
Maybe we can make him...
No, PTI is trying to make this...
I think they killed that guy though.
No, he's alive. He's in jail.
The peacock guy?
Yeah, he's in jail.
I heard that he died.
No.
In jail.
PTI types are trying to make Sanam Javed and... Again, these are... I don't know if the audience knows.
Yeah.
Some people in the protest into sort of political heroes or public figures. No, I think the whole liberal democracy experiment has failed.
Yeah, that is clear.
I don't know if it's failed, but it's over.
No, October 7th was like the death bell, I think.
October 7th?
October 7th.
Yeah, the 7th from Hamas. The Hamas attacks, that was it. That was Archduke Franz Ferdinand. They shot him right in the head.
Yeah.
The UN, even though the UN is much more deeply entrenched into civil society through NGOs and all these weird like corporate collaborations, like with the big Nestle's and Unilevers.
Yeah.
It's quite clear in the past 100 years what has happened is a big consolidation. The companies have gotten smaller and smaller, like bigger and bigger, and fewer numbers of corporations own most of the things.
Yeah.
And I mean they as in the elites of the world have been successful in that, and they've clearly colluded with some kind of Illuminati-esque, Freemasonic precision, psychic attack on the whole world.
Because
you can't, dude. You can't even in Pakistan. You can't talk to an educated person and not get a response like how they think that trans visibility or whatever is the most important thing that that can be done in I don't know in 100 years.
Trans visibility?
Whatever nonsense,
What's that?
Just that because they're invisible because they have superpowers and they need to
They're trans people.
Yeah, or whatever, or I don't know, black erasure or trans erasure. Like, what kind of laser gun do we have?
But there's very few people in Pakistan who think that way.
No, but if you meet an educated person who's like worldly wise, but not just a few, anyone who's watching TV shows, right? The sympathetic seed has been planted in their minds, right? Right now, the 12-year-old, 14-year-old watching the TV shows right now, or music videos, or playing the video games.
Right.
The new video games even, they're like filled to the brim with LGBT stuff.
Right.
So that kid is going to grow up, and then when he's in his 20s, from whatever social class, whatever the level of education or skill they have, they're going to be gay.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Because Stone Cold said so. You're going to be gay, kids.
Did he say that?
No, he didn't. But maybe, but it could also just be like a factor of, that given enough time, this is just how a system of social organization just pans out.
You think you think that the sort of the gender and sex exploration and that's inevitable decay of any kind of decadence?
No, I think just the fact that a few people accumulate all the resources and make their way to the top, and they exploit the people at the bottom. Because like without any sort of moral compass or code that is properly codified.
No, everyone, they need religion.
They do. Otherwise, it's
And
like
it's not like I want to impose religion on them in any, but because they're exporting all of these cultural values and it's infecting the whole planet, it's they need it the most because they're the strongest materially right now, right?
right.
So in this particular iteration of our lives in this particular time and right now, they're the strongest. They have sort of orchestrated the 20th and the 21st centuries and the 19th as well. And they're exporting nonsense now. They're exporting junk now.
Right.
And that junk, for it to be stopped, it has to be tapped out at the source. At the source, and I hope they find like religion. It's Christianity good for them. Islam even better. I genuinely think this, by the way, that if they found Islam, they'd be much better off and happier. A lot of them are in Europe and in America. In America, it's more of a novelty, but in the Europe, in Western Europe,
Yeah.
in masses, like white people are converting to Islam because they find like a civility and it's like social balance. And this is a woman, this is a man, they're the husband and wife, and these are the kids, and
Yeah.
just that normalcy, I think, is.
It's just a lot more simpler than the Holy Trinity.
No, I think the theology stuff is one element for a certain amount of people, but I think considering we're talking about it in the lens of the culture war, or whatever, I think the normalcy of just regular old husband, wife, kids, taking care of the elders, and that, I mean, Khabib, right? Like, people converted after watching his relationship with his father, right?
Yeah.
Which is insane to me.
His work ethic,
his work ethic, his discipline. He respects his father.
I think
and he said no to money.
He said no. I think the fight he had with Conor McGregor really solidified that in a lot of people's minds, where it was just like this symbol for excess and just degeneracy.
Conor's like he has a whiskey brand and
versus this really morally upright,
ascetic sort of hermit man.
Who's like watching this drunk madman just screaming in his face, and he just reacts calmly and whatever. Not to diss Conor McGregor or anything. I think he's a good fighter, or at least he was. But that, I think, really solidified this in a lot of people's minds that maybe there is something to this. If not Islam, then at least religion for sure.
Yeah, religiosity. I think you see the rise of it. I just hope I see it in the conventional sense, not this Jordan Peterson type nonsense religion.
Yeah, no, that stuff. Yeah, I mean, you've seen what happened.
Yeah, it died out. I think. Shukr hai. Thank you. Thank God.
Yeah, no, you've seen, Jordan Peterson's life. Jordan Peterson seems he's miserable all the time,
I've never seen him look happy.
At all.
Yeah.
And he just seems like in constant agony. And that, I don't think religion works if you look at it through that metaphorical sort of.
It's so unappealing.
Yeah.
It's so unappealing the way he's conducted himself and his family and how he's gone full circle. And how can you love your people and then shill for Israel? That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts. There is not an ounce of sympathy for white people that you might have.
Right.
And again, white people are not a monolith. It's whatever, Scottish or Irish or whatever, wherever they come from.
Yeah, though they see themselves as a monolith.
Do they?
There is that concept of whiteness that they have.
Oh, the left does, right?
Even the right does.
I don't know if the white nationalist types are a monolith. They do. I'm sure they distinguish themselves in terms of religious beliefs, and I think we would get along much better with a Christian white sort of Europe and America,
as opposed to a black Christian.
No, I mean whiteness. I think in America the unique phenomenon of them having a significant black population is inescapable. I think they've made their peace with the black community. And
they have these days. They have Drake dissing Kendrick Lamar and dissing J. Cole, and they're happy with that.
I don't think those are real people.
Yeah, they were killed and replaced.
No. Even if they are who they say they are, I don't think they're really human beings. I don't consider them of any value. I think they're demonic.
Yeah, I think Drake for sure is.
Why would you? What kind of society would organize itself in a way that they're giving billions of dollars to these demons to mess up their children.
To rappers. Man, I was thinking about this the other day while we were growing up. You used to read about like these conservatives in America, and they're like, "Oh, we need to ban this music," and they're going
Yeah,
to
it was
and
the
stuff.
satanic panic.
The satanic panic, and I was like, "That's I think the signaling at that time was that look how dumb these people are.
That
how
was
stupid they
we
are."
all bought the listen. We all watched the Jon Stewart types and the liberal TV shows, and we all thought they were really cool. And the Christians are dumb and
Right.
like Footloose. Remember Footloose, the Kevin Bacon movie?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Shukriya. So Kevin Bacon goes to a small Christian like white town, and he comes from the big city, I think, and he's a dancer, and they don't dance in that city because the church says dancing is from the devil or whatever. And then the whole town is taken by storm because he dances his way into their hearts and their minds. And then they have a big dance at the school, like the school dance or whatever. At that time, that was when we all heckin' loved science.
Right.
I heckin' love, science and these people grew up on what Bill Nye the Science Guy and these kinds of characters.
Yeah.
They were so insidious that in their messaging these things so they had homosexuals appear on TV. Slowly they sort of like the smart gay guy. Gay people are smart and well put together. This is something that is sort of universally accepted. Why is that? I feel like they're probably very low IQ. At least the ones I've met in my real life.
Yeah, they do have a tendency to be stupid.
I've generally met them very low IQ. So they're very neat, well put together.
What about
the sassy black, the very funny, sarcastic transgender thing?
Right.
Like all of these ideas, I think, are insidiously introduced into the sort of the cultural zeitgeist as markers.
Yeah, like as when we were younger, like these things seemed absurd, but like lately, like if you listen to a lot of, and like as an adult now, when I look around me, everybody's listening to like these hip hop artists. Like you have Drake, for example, who we were just talking about, and all his music is just about just like the most obscene possible stuff.
There's nothing to it.
Most of it is about like, and I don't want to sound like Ben Shabibo, who is like rap isn't real music, but like the subject matter really leaves something to be desired, like promoting drug culture, promoting like just
gang culture,
treating women horribly.
Sexual degeneracy. That's what they're
sexual degeneracy, because now even the women are showing up.
They're not even masquerading as artists or musicians anymore. They're just
right, and like
these women, they're not even marketing themselves as musicians anymore.
Right,
they're marketing themselves as stars.
And even in Pakistan right now, like, and this is the concerning thing, like you go to universities, this is what all the young kids are listening to, and that becomes like their aspiration.
That's what I'm saying. The 12, the zero age to like 25, where the frontal cortex hasn't developed and they think they're very smart and they're basically idiots. They're all consuming this nonsense. So if we grew up with a certain level of sort of like Christians are dumb and white people don't know what they're talking about, and you're not my real dad or whatever. If we grew up in that Eminem sort of era, can you imagine what these idiots are going to be like?
Yeah, you see it already in them, don't you?
Yeah, the colored hair.
No, they're very open to.
The colored hair is the big indicator for me, by the way. I know this person is like retarded.
Very open to drug use. Very sexually open.
I wouldn't say open, obscene.
Yeah, okay, I was like using it in terms of like the big 6 sort of personality traits, but it is obscene. Yeah, definitely. It's very saddening.
I don't care. I genuinely don't care. I have no respect for these kinds of parents who raise these kinds of kids. I don't have the respect for these people. I don't think they're going to have any significant impact on our society. I think they're just gonna be bureaucratic, little pharaohs who will become bureaucrats and officers and big CEOs, and they're going to try to, throw this slop on a primarily agrarian, backward sort of, village dwelling society that's never going to accept them.
That is an issue, yeah.
That's the dichotomy, isn't it?
That is.
Like, for example, didn't you grow up with the idea that the American South is they're all idiots?
Yeah. Because that's the signaling that they
Because
do.
all the signaling was coming from the New York elites and the California type elites, right? The Hollywood and...
Right.
So, are they idiots? They have some of the most, functioning states in America, well-functioning states in America. Well, look at California. It's not even a real place anymore.
Right.
I've seen the videos. It's horrifying.
Yeah, it also has, I think, the largest homeless population in the world right now.
Yeah, look at the free drugs, free sex culture. Where is it? It's all gone.
Yeah. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were right about California all along.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good place to end it, I think.
Yeah.
Let's take a call from one of our viewers.
What?
Yeah.
Who is it?
It's Shplee.
Actually, let's have a real wrap up.
Hello, it's me, Shplee.
No, let's have a real.
I'm concerned. I'm worried about Iran.
No, let's have a real.
I don't want a world war. I'm gonna poo my pants.
Like, can you have a real end?
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Would you like to just summarize briefly what we have learned today?
That was really fun, guys. But you know what's not fun? Israel. No, but I think that I think it's all connected. Like the escalation with Iran and Israel, the social degradation. It's all a big plan. It's all a big scheme to make everyone gay.
I think you're right. But that'll never be us.
Not me. I have the not gays.
We'll never be gay. Because we don't have the gay gene.
You remember the gay gene?
Okay.